Frazier. Down goes Frazier.
We had an awesome weekend of fun fights, and I want to talk about them. I was actually out there in Phoenix, in Glendale, at the Desert Diamond Arena for the fight between Emanuel Navarrete and Oscar Valdez. But before I visit that topic, I want to talk about what happened across the pond with Anthony Joshua. So originally, Anthony Joshua was supposed to fight, goodness, why am I forgetting his name off the top? Dillian White. He was supposed to fight Dillian White 1 week before the fight. Dillian White pisses hot or tests hot for PEDs. So on the last minute, 1 week out, they managed to find a replacement, or actually it was less than a week out. They got Robert Helenius, who had just so happened to be fresh off a fight himself. Robert Helenius just had a fight like a weekend ago. It looked like some basement in Finland or something to that effect. I think he fought a school teacher. He got a third-round stoppage. Robert Helenius answered the call and filled in for Dillian White. And we had an interesting little scrap out there in the UK. Anthony Joshua's quote-unquote tune-up fight for his future perspective super match against Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder. And a lot of people saw the performance. By the way, if you didn't watch the fight, Anthony Joshua won by 7th round knockout, stoppage. It was a pretty boring, anticlimactic affair up until the stoppage. It was the battle of the jabs. Anthony Joshua looked apprehensive. He looked a little bit hesitant and gun-shy, which is nothing new. I think a lot of us are accustomed to a mental idea or an image of what we think Anthony Joshua is, some kind of, juggernaut that rushes into the fire and gets the second round stoppage over guys like Charles Martin. But he actually was never some reckless juggernaut, I think, that some people have him in their mind as being. He was always kind of a puncher with some boxer features. He obviously did have that Olympic boxing pedigree in the amateurs fighting for Team GB. And he had just recently switched trainers. He was originally, for most of his amateur career and most of his professional career, under Rob McCracken. Rob McCracken, easily one of the most respected and highly regarded trainers out there in the UK. After his first loss to Alexander Usyk, he switched trainers over to Robert Garcia. He lost that second match to Robert Garcia, and that was the end of that union. He moved over to Texas and linked up with Derrick James, former trainer of the year, Derrick James, whose stable includes Errol Spence, Jermell Charlo, Frank Martin, Marcus Brown, although I'm not too sure if Marcus Brown is still with him. Hold on a second. Anyways, a lot of people in the boxing world were very eager to see Anthony Joshua's performance against what was supposed to be Dillian White. I guess now, obviously, it was Robert Helenius this past weekend. And a lot of us were curious to see what kind of stylistic improvements or kind of stylistic adaptations that Anthony Joshua would make under the guidance of Derrick James. It was an anticlimactic fight. Anthony Joshua looked very hesitant. He was staying behind his jab. He was very cautious. The days of Anthony Joshua, how do I word this? So that fight between Robert Helenius and Anthony Joshua was anticlimactic. Some would even go so far as to say the pacing of it was boring. As you're watching the feeds online as the fight is going on in real time, people are complaining about the pace of the fight because it was a battle of the jabs. Anthony Joshua is going to play it safe from here on out, folks. That whole old Anthony Joshua where he was young, fresh off of the Olympics and eager to prove himself, rushing into the fire, quick to, blaze through opponents, that era's gone. So he fought behind his jab, kind of very hesitant and awkward at moments. And the very first time he decides to commit, the instant he commits in that 7th round, he threw a jab to the stomach, came overhand at the top with that right hand, knocked out who we think now is a glass chin, Robert Helenius, got the 7th round stoppage. I thought it was a good look. I expected him to look rather shaky in his first fight out with Derrick James. He got the stoppage as was expected against Robert Helenius. Anything less would have had him being dismissed by the boxing world, I think. And now it sets up the future fight between him and Deontay Wilder. In the post-fight, Eddie Hearn, owner, president, whatever you want to call it, of Matchroom Boxing, said that everything is all in place to set up a super fight between Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua this January out there in Saudi Arabia. Hold on a second. It's a bit warm in this room, y'all. I got to turn off the fan, turn off the air conditioning so I don't have the background noise. So I'm still very much interested in seeing a fight between Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder. They both have long since lost the aura of invincibility. We both know they both have some extraordinary flaws. We've both seen them lose. Everybody knows Deontay Wilder has one of the most craziest right hands that we've seen in all of boxing history. And then there's Anthony Joshua, the former Olympian, former unified champion, who lost back-to-back fights to Alexander Usyk. Kind of reminds me of Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford in the way that, Anthony Joshua has the thorough resume, and, people want to poke holes at Deontay Wilder's resume. Deontay Wilder has only really fought, as far as hard competition, Tyson Fury and Luis Ortiz. I guess maybe we'll give him credit for Charles Martin, Trevor Berbick. Actually, I don't even think he fought Charles Martin. I think he fought Trevor Berbick. Not Trevor Berbick. Why am I forgetting his name? The guy he won to beat the title off of. Oh my gosh. Let me get the name, y'all. Anyways. The first fight went the whole distance. The second fight, he knocked him out. Oh my gosh. I can't believe I just said Trevor Berbick. Bermain Stiverne. On the same level as Trevor Berbick, y'all. Come on, keep it real. A champion who was there, took advantage of a moment in time when there was no real competition, and then Bermain Stiverne ended up becoming a champion. So, yeah, like I said, I know a lot of people are too. The idea of Anthony Joshua and Terrence, goodness. So, the idea of Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder finding, I'm going to grab a drink, y'all. Hold on a second. So, like I said, the idea of Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder fighting Anthony Joshua is not as titillating or as exciting as it was 5 years ago when they were both undefeated champions, or 3 or 4 years ago, or what have you, when they were both undefeated and they both had an aura of invincibility. Obviously, since then, that aura of invincibility has been shattered. Deontay Wilder had those vicious losses to Tyson, the Gypsy King Fury, and then Anthony Joshua, he lost to Andy Ruiz in that first fight, and obviously the back-to-back losses to Alexander Usyk. So they both have done a little bit of rebuilding. You can criticize Deontay Wilder's resume because he really only has Tyson Fury and Luis Ortiz. I guess if you want to give him Bermain Stiverne, be my guest. Anthony Joshua has fought a who's who of this era's heavyweight contenders and top-ranked titles. So you got to give the credit on the resume to Anthony Joshua, but both of them have extraordinarily exploitable offensive styles. Deontay Wilder clearly is not the most technically gifted guy, but he has that crazy right hand that you always have to consider. Anthony Joshua clearly looks hesitant, looks like a newborn deer trying to adapt to Derrick James' new boxing style, but he still has that knockout power, as was clearly evidenced by knocking out Robert Helenius, who just got knocked out by Deontay Wilder himself. So I think it's an intriguing fight regardless. Hopefully it goes down this January. And I do believe there is still an appetite amongst boxing fans to see that long-awaited fight between Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua. You got to love a big heavyweight battle between UK heavyweights and American heavyweights, especially ones that have a lot of love from the fans. Boxing community, how do you think a fight between Deontay the Bronze Bomber and Anthony Joshua will play out in January if it goes down as scheduled by Eddie Hearn, or at least as he was telling? Let me know in the comment section, y'all. Let's chop this one up. So I'm going to switch directions from that fight, and let's talk about this awesome fight out there at the Desert Diamond Arena in Phoenix, Arizona. That top-ranked card featured the title match, the WBO Super Featherweight Championship bout between Emanuel El Vaquero Navarrete and my guy, Oscar Valdez. Oscar Valdez Fierro, if you want to get super technical, but it was an awesome event. I was out there in person. Got a chance to mix it up. I was at the hotel, the host hotel for the fight, so it was very fascinating, y'all. Like, I was hanging out with Steve Kim, Jim Boone, the ticket sales guy. There was a minute there where I was hanging out with Mike Coppinger. After the fight, I was hanging out with Eric Morales, Marco Antonio Barrera. Emanuel Navarrete pulled up to the hotel. He was there till like 3 or 4 in the morning. I bailed out after 2 a.m., y'all. I'm not a party animal, but it was very fascinating to hang around all these people, mix it up, and I got a chance to pass out business cards. So your boy Hot Boxing Minute is networking, y'all. I'm trying to make these moves to become the most plugged in and well-networked boxing content creator on TikTok and YouTube. It's going to take me some time, y'all. There's some journalists who got years on me. I'm going to catch up, though. Make no mistake about that. It was an awesome fight. Some would say it was a contender for Fight of the Year. I think it should have been a little more two-way action for it to be given a Fight of the Year designation, but up until this point of the year, it's definitely up there for one of the most exciting fights. Emanuel Navarrete, in my opinion, won that fight, I don't know, I'd say 8-4 by my viewing. As I saw it, I had it 8-4. I don't know what the judges gave it to him, but it was definitely a unanimous decision win. Let me see if I can pull it up right now. Hold on a second. Navarrete beats Valdez. And let me see if I can pull up an article that'll give us, what the... Okay, let me see right here. It'll give it up what the cards were. So it was a pretty tough fight for my guy Oscar Valdez. Oscar had some spurts here and there. He even had him hurt, I think in the 4th or 5th round, and then another time in the 8th or 9th round. But Oscar had a problem capitalizing. So essentially, it was Emanuel Navarrete's length and his combinations, and Oscar Valdez trying desperately to counter and get that one punch. I really wish the old Oscar Valdez that was under Manny Robles, I think he would have probably done a little bit better than the high guard, defensively minded counter-punching Eddie Reynoso style of fighting. But that was the Oscar Valdez that showed up, the one that's not so inclined to get into shootouts like he did with Genesis Cervania and Scott Quigg. This was a more cautious Oscar Valdez, and he was trying to counter. Ultimately, the offensive output of Emanuel Navarrete was just far too much. He must have thrown a little over 1,000 punches up against, I think, 450 in total from Oscar Valdez. When you get thrown out by double the amount and your opponent throws double the amount of punches, it's very likely you're either going to get knocked out or lose on the cards. I don't believe Oscar Valdez was really in any credible threat of getting knocked out. Oscar Valdez is one of the toughest dudes in the game. Clearly, he survived fighting through broken jaw in multiple places against Scott Quigg. But it was a clear, wide, unanimous decision victory in favor of Emanuel Navarrete. The judges, Zachary Young, scored at 116-112. Chris Wilson scored at 118-110, which just hurts my soul because that's a nasty sweep. And shoot, even worse, Lisa Giampa had a 119-109. So many people thought it was pretty bad in favor of Emanuel Navarrete. It was entertaining to see. I think the crowd was definitely in favor of Oscar Valdez. I mean, Glendale/Phoenix is kind of his home base when he's not in Hermosillo, Sonora, Mexico. And the crowd was definitely in Oscar Valdez's favor, but that did nothing to deter Emanuel Navarrete. Emanuel Navarrete is an enigma, folks. Like I said, going into this fight, I had favored Oscar Valdez. If you saw the 2 previous fights of Navarrete when he fought Eduardo Baez in San Diego, I was there. Eduardo Baez of Tijuana really was kind of winning the fight against Emanuel Navarrete until he got dropped by a body shot. I think he might have broke his rib or something because he hit the ground and you could hear him audibly yell out loud in the arena. So up until that point, though, Eduardo Baez made Emanuel Navarrete look very vulnerable. And then the fight before this last fight that he had with Liam Wilson from Australia, the one that he won the vacant WBO super featherweight strap, in that fight against Liam Wilson. Liam Wilson from Australia righteously should be the guy holding that WBO featherweight strap. He knocked down Emanuel Navarrete, kind of hit him after he hit the ground though, but the referee gave him some crazy 16-second count. Emanuel Navarrete even spit out his mouthpiece. Regardless, it is what it is. I guess the long count justifies being hit when he was down. So I guess that kind of crosses it out or evens up the playing field on that one. Good luck getting the Australians to buy into that one. But yeah, so after both of those previous fights, Emanuel Navarrete looked very vulnerable. And most boxing people were under the impression that Oscar Valdez was going to be the one to take advantage of all of Emanuel Navarrete's technical flaws, kind of like he did against Alacran, Miguel Burchelt. We were all wrong. Turns out Emanuel Navarrete fights up to the level of his competition. I've never seen Emanuel Navarrete so defensively responsible. His hands were up guarding his face the whole time. He never does that in any fight before this. His hands were up. He was countering. He had answers for everything Oscar Valdez was trying to throw at him. Hats off to Emanuel Navarrete on successfully defending that strap. Boxing community, what did you think about that performance from Emanuel Navarrete? Let me know in the comment section, y'all. Tap in. So I guess one of the questions now is, what's next for Emanuel Navarrete? And I'm all in for the Shakur Stevenson fight. You know, Emanuel Navarrete successfully defended his WBO super featherweight strap, and most people in the boxing world are talking about a catchweight with Shakur Stevenson, and I love that idea. The fanboys of Shakur Stevenson, hear me out. I know as soon as you mention it, they go, Shakur Stevenson would whoop him up and all that crazy stuff. Listen, y'all, you got to put your fanboy emotions to the side and see the bigger picture. We're talking the green print here. The green print, you need two vital components. A black fighter the streets rock with, and you got that with Shakur Stevenson. And a Mexican fighter that the streets rock with. Oh, the Mexican homies, they love Emanuel Navarrete. And who's Shakur Stevenson going to get a big money fight with in the 135 division? In the WBC, in his ranking list, nobody even wants to fight him. Isaac Cruz don't want to fight him. William Zepeda is already wrapped up with his fight with Mercito Gesta. You got Frank Martin. You got Edwin De Los Santos, who are with the PBC. Going all the way down the list, it's just disqualified opposition. At number 10, you got Raymond Murataya, who is on the same side of the street with Top Rank. So I say, hey, Shakur Stevenson should secure that vacant WBC belt that's going to be left behind when Devin Haney fights Regis Prograis. So Shakur Stevenson, get that quick WBC belt from one of the featherweights, from the lightweights, and then go meet Emanuel Navarrete at a catchweight and get the bag. So before you criticize it being a Shakur Stevenson fanboy, think, I want to see my favorite fighter, Shakur Stevenson, get paid millions and get the bag, because he'll get it with the green print against Emanuel Navarrete. Stop being a mindless fanboy and just think big picture. Anyways, that's what I think. So, what's up next for Oscar Valdez? You know, I think a lot of people want to know what's up next with Oscar Valdez, and I guess we're going to have to wait and see what time shows us, folks. Oscar Valdez has been one of the most exciting, action-packed fighters of this modern era, especially in that featherweight division, super featherweight division. This new school of boxing fan throws their fighters away after one loss or two. I am not of that mindset. Oscar Valdez has been in quite a few wars, Genesis Cervantes, Scott Quigg, this last fight with Emanuel Navarrete, but he seems to be in good working order. I would favor him in a fight, or at the very least to be extraordinarily competitive in a fight with the likes of Joe Cordina and O'Shaquie Foster. He did beat O'Shaquie Foster in the amateurs. Hell, put him in there with Hector Luis Garcia. Let's see what happens. I still think he's competitive with all three of them, so I hope Oscar Valdez decides he still has more to give the fans. He's a two-division champion thus far and has a huge fan base, and I'm sure that Hector Luis Garcia, Joe Cordina, or O'Shaquie Foster would jump up at the opportunity to get a paycheck in a big money fight against a known draw like Oscar Valdez, assuming that Emanuel Navarrete doesn't want to unify with one of those other guys first. But I do believe Oscar Valdez is still a factor in the super featherweight division. Boxing community, do you think Oscar Valdez can be competitive against the other three champions in that division? Let me know in the comment section, y'all. Let's chop this up. So, pardon the sweat, y'all. I'm going to finish the video off of that one. Leave me some questions, comments, concerns in the comment box below. Hit that like button if you haven't already done so. I hope you are already following this page, this channel. You're listening to Hot Boxing Minute, folks, the future of boxing analysis on YouTube and TikTok. Peace.